Broadcast is live, but all right, live on Periscope it looks like. Are we live on YouTube? Do you believe in miracles? Oh, are we live? Anybody? Jennifer?
I saw you on Periscope.
This is Jordan Chariton. I feel like I'm in NASA Space Center, trying to go live on the interweb. Yep, my YouTube page is not working. So add that to the YouTube performance evaluation.
I don't see you on Facebook.
But am I live on Periscope?
Yeah.
All right, then we shall go. We shall move forward. So I was trying to go live on Facebook. I was trying to go live on Periscope, and I was trying to go live on YouTube. And when I attempted to go live at 5 o'clock on all three, the Facebook didn't work. YouTube, I'm now getting, let me show you the page. So you see, no, not that page, this page. That would be my YouTube page currently. So apparently YouTube.com works, but Jordan Chariton Reports does not work on the YouTube. Go figure. So I don't know what the heck is going on with YouTube. My subscribers don't get notifications when I go live. Mike Figueredo of the Humanist Report just did a terrific video showing that apparently on YouTube, even if you are press subscribed to a channel, you do not actually get the channel's videos in your feed. You have to press subscribe and also click the bell to get videos. Go figure. So my YouTube page is down. Facebook won't work. But Twitter works, so we're moving in the right direction, folks. Monday, April 2nd, a lot going on, obviously. You can support my reporting at patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. That's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. There is a teachers' revolt happening all over this blessed, undemocratic country, and I like it. I think it's a good thing. We've seen it in West Virginia. We've seen it in New Jersey, and today we've seen it in Kentucky and Oklahoma. And these are teachers that have been paid criminal wages, in many cases starvation wages, for decades, and now finally they're fighting back. And they have been threatened for a long time that if you fight back, you will not keep your jobs. If you fight back, we're going to bring in the replacements. You remember St. Reagan in the 80s, you know, the airline worker strikers. I'm going to fire you and bring in replacements. Well, that's what the teachers have been up against in many, many places. The school districts, the government have basically told them, if you want to strike, if you want to actually fight for a living wage, then you're going to lose your job. And now they are collectively, it seems, it's spreading across the country, saying, no, we're not going to bow down anymore to your threats. We're not going to bow down anymore to intimidation. And we are not going to have to work as teachers by day, and then drive the school bus to make more money, or have to have part-time jobs to make more money, and fundraise to have to just pay for school supplies, which these states are not paying for. These states, like Kentucky, Oklahoma, they're finding plenty of money to give oil companies subsidies, to give corporations massive tax breaks, to give their donors massive tax breaks. They got plenty of money for all that. But they don't have any money to give teachers a living wage. They don't have any money to give teachers enough school supplies, to pay for new textbooks. No money for that. So let me read you just a little bit here on the teacher strike happening today. What will be, will be. This one is from the New York Times. Hold on. Quote, "It really is a wildfire. Teachers go on strike in Oklahoma and Kentucky." So, thousands of teachers in Oklahoma and Kentucky walked off the job Monday morning, shutting down school districts as they protested cuts in pay. benefits, and school funding in a movement that has spread rapidly since igniting in West Virginia earlier this year. In Oklahoma City, thousands of protesting teachers ringed the Capitol, chanting, "No funding, no future." Katrina Ruff, a local teacher, carried a sign that read, "Thanks, West Virginia." Quote, "They gave us the guts to stand up for ourselves." The wave of strikes in Republican-dominated states, mainly organized by ordinary teachers on Facebook, has caught lawmakers and sometimes the teachers' own labor unions flat-footed. And the strikes are occurring in states and districts with important midterm races in November, suggesting that thousands of teachers, with their pent-up rage over years of pay freezes and budget cuts, are set to become a powerful political force this fall. Might I add, teachers are predominantly women. So this goes hand in hand with the record number of women candidates we're seeing running in primaries on the Democratic side. The next red state to join the protest movement could be Arizona, where there is an open Senate seat and where thousands of teachers gathered in Phoenix last week to demand a 20% pay raise and more funding for schools. The growing fervor suggests that labor activism has taken on a new grassroots form. Quote, "Our unions have been weakened so much that a lot of teachers don't have faith in them," said Noah Carvelis, an elementary school music teacher in Tolleson, Arizona, outside of Phoenix, and leader of the movement calling itself #RedForEd, after the red t-shirts protesting teachers are wearing across the country. Mr. Carvelis said that younger teachers have been primed for activism by their anger over the election of President Trump, his appointment of Betsy DeVos as education secretary, and even their own students' participation in anti-gun protests after the school shooting in Parkland, Florida, which, if you recall, that bastion of humanity, Rick Santorum, said on CNN, "Hey students, fuck you. Stop your protesting. Stop your rantings for gun control. And just go learn CPR." That's what Rick Santorum, that was the message he had on CNN a week and a half ago. And go figure, CNN welcomed him back a week later for their Sunday morning programming. He was on State of the Union a week after telling students, don't worry about protesting. Don't protest for gun control. Don't protest for your lives. Just learn CPR. Only in America. Only in America. But really, what's really amazing about this is how quickly this is happening. You basically, for years, teachers have been intimidated. I have friends that are teachers, and they were very scared if they strike, they're going to lose their jobs. They're like, oh, we're a dime a dozen. They'll just bring in, substitute teachers who are dying for full-time work. But the teachers are collectively bandying together. They're collectively saying, no, 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 no. If we all stand united, not just in West Virginia, but in New Jersey, now today in Oklahoma, in Kentucky, looking to spread it to Arizona. We're hearing other states are rallying together. This is how progressive grassroots activism takes off, when everyone bandies together, because they can't replace all of you. They can't. And it's not exactly a good look when you're, instead of wanting to pay teachers a living wage. I'm about to play for you an interview I did with a former teacher today who was making such low wages she had to leave the job she loves to go for a job she hates. But this movement is also getting out how out of whack the priorities have been in this state. How Kentucky and Oklahoma and West Virginia, they got money for tax cuts for the rich. They got money for tax cuts for their donors, the governor's donors. They got money for fracking and subsidies to oil companies. They just don't have money to pay the most important positions, in my view, the teachers. So I want to play you an interview with a woman I interviewed just about an hour ago. Her name was, let me make sure I have her name here, doing a lot of things, so bear with me. Her name was Ann Beck. Ann Beck is a former Oklahoma teacher, but she was making such starvation wages, she basically had to quit and go to a job she hates. And she is basically behind the scenes helping with a lot of the coordination and activism with the current teacher strikes. But I thought this was interesting because this is a woman who literally loves her job. On her free time now, even though she's not working as a teacher, goes and volunteers to teach computer programming and things like that. But the interview I had with her is really, really telling. So I want to play it for you. Here we go.
I left teaching in 2009 or 2013 was my last year. I was still in schools working as an educational instructional technology coach, and then went to higher ed to teach technology to pre-service teachers, and higher ed funding in Oklahoma has been slashed just as much as public ed, and lost my job there, and now working for a robotics company that does robotics worldwide, actually. So if I could do it without having to drive all the bus routes or, coach and all those other things like my husband has to do to make a, somewhat of a living, I would do it. But, it's just a teacher, and as a female, those opportunities really aren't really there for female teachers, especially, to get those extra stipends.
Obviously, usually a personal question, but for this story, it's important to know, what were you making? What does your husband make as a teacher?
As a teacher, I was making, because I had a master's, I ended up, I think when I left, making $34,000 with the $500 student council stipend, because I got $500 a year for that, so I think it was like $34,000. And then when I went to the administration side, I automatically got a $10,000 pay raise, and I was making about $45,000, $46,000 by going into the administration side and getting out of the classroom, which tore me up. I mean, it's just, my heart is middle school kids. That's where, but we just can't. With my husband, he makes about $10,000 in stipends and bus duties, so he pulls in about 46 now. But his base pay, I think, is around 34, 35. But it's the majority of stipends from coaching, and he's also an athletic director and those things that keep him away from the home, but allow us to stay in education, because that's our ministry. It's a family thing.
I was about to say, like, when would you have time to even parent or be with the kids?
They go with us. The village has raised our children. I have three. I have an 11-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 6-year-old. And at the time I had two in daycare, I was working part-time for a charter school company, as well as teaching full-time in the classroom as well. I was a part-time virtual teacher, and that's the only way we were able to make it 2012 and 2013, because I got about an extra $10,000 a year from doing teaching part-time on online school. And that's what a lot of our teachers are doing now too, is doing it part-time.
And what I find interesting, obviously I'm not talking to him, but if you're a teacher, it's not like you work 8 in the morning to 2 and then you're done. There's lesson planning and a lot of other things. I used to date someone who was a teacher. She was doing things on the weekend. So your husband, and when you were a teacher, you have to do all those things outside of the classroom, while also driving the bus route, while also being a teacher. Can you kind of talk about, like, this low pay and having to work other jobs obviously would be hurting preparation and all the things you need to do for your main job as a teacher?
Absolutely. When I left the classroom, I got a big break, because that was kind of my pull towards technology was, I differentiated my teaching style to all my students, and wanted to take this time with great lesson planning and getting every resource for every student that I had, regardless of learning style. And technology at least assisted me in that, and that's kind of was my forte in going to the teachers. We don't have enough time to do this all in one day, and no, in the summer times, that's kind of the misconception. I would spend my day teaching. A lot of times, the other thing with Oklahoma, I think I lost my planning period the last 2 years, at least about 25%, 20 to 30% of the time, without compensation, because we couldn't afford subs when people were gone. So I didn't have my planning time either. And we would spend, at least myself, with grading, and my husband was a coach, so he didn't have all the grading in about half the day. But I would work till 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, at least, with grading, answering messages, and because my kids did contact me through a Edmodo classroom, where they were able to virtually reach me outside the classroom as well, which gave me more time to not have to meet. But and then especially all the teachers I know, I mean, we spend our summers, they're not off. They're at conferences, they're professionally developing, they're at ed camps, they're at schools trying to holding their own PLCs and things like that. So I mean, it's if you get up at my husband's getting up at 6:50 to go on a bus route, not coming back from the bus route till 4:15, coaching, staying at athletic events, not coming home till 10 o'clock at night. So that's pretty much no family dinners anymore. Those kind of things just don't happen.
And I don't know what your politics are, but in general, obviously Oklahoma, red state, a lot of these states that pay teachers near starvation wages, they have no problem giving subsidies to oil companies. They have no problem giving massive tax breaks to their donors and corporations, but they don't have enough money to pay teachers, what they deserve. What is your thoughts as far as Oklahoma priorities? Because we do know it's a lot of the money, subsidies to oil companies, and the same Republican playbook around the country, which is prioritizing corporations and wealthy donors over public sector workers.
I think that is still the norm. I mean, I think that's why there's so many people up at the Capitol right now. We got a big portion of our pay raise last week, and we still rallied today and closed school today because the educational funding and the amount of money for our support staff isn't there. We are at, I think and I don't quote, you may have to put a little bit more, I think we're at a 3 to 4% GPT. And we wanted to raise that to 7, and our surrounding states are 14, 15. I mean, the tax breaks for our big oil and gas companies are, they're great. And so, there is a lot of funding there that I think we're not tapping. But I think that a lot of us are trying to research that and trying to get to the bottom of that. It's just a lot of it is not put out there for us. I know a hotel tax was going to come through that was going to give us an extra $50 million, and now big corporations, Tom Coburn has came in and said, and now they're not going to fund it with that. There's a lot of it, but again, I think that goes back to the people and through our outlets and what social media, especially our Twitter or Oakland hashtag, has done for us is we're catching them. It's absurdity, and we're getting that to the public and to the voters. And our biggest thing is we tried to vote a lot of educators in this last term, and we just didn't get it done. And it's very frustrating whenever we hear parents, we hear community members saying, yes, it's not good, we need to do something, but we're voting the same people back in. I also would like to, if you can research a little bit on Twitter about Cleveland. I think his name is Bobby Cleveland, the representative from actually where I'm working right now, the district I'm working in. What he had to say on national television today is just despicable. I mean, it's just this laugh. I mean, it's like they're just out of touch with reality sometimes. I mean, it's just that, and I think that through these public forums, we're just getting a lot more information and a lot more people being held accountable.
What did he say?
It was like there just wasn't a lot of consistency with what he was talking. I almost feel like that they're not well informed as well either. I feel like there's just a lot of miscommunications going on and a lot of not transparency. I guess is the best word to say. I just think that there has been a lot of transparency that has gone on, and now with the communication and a lot of groups forming together, we're starting to see a lot of those, and I think that will change. But it's, we're progressive on one side, and we still have a very Republican, very conservative government that I really would be very surprised to not see a big change this election year. I really would be very surprised to not see at least a lot of seats turn, because I think that we finally got it to that point. Last election we didn't, but I think that this election, I think we're going to see a lot more change. Because I don't think they've been doing their jobs. I mean, there's a lot of them working for educators, and there's a lot of passionate ones, so I don't want to put that label on a lot of us. We do have a good stronghold that are up there working. They're just a minority, and so I don't want to put that blanket on all of them, because we've got some passionate ones up there, but we need to do our job and vote. I mean, our parents need to vote, our community reason to not be informed anymore. We have too many outlets for every parent, every community member, every retired person to let them know everything that's going on. We have retired teachers that have sat up there for the last 2 years and tweeted out, messaged out everything that they've seen. And we just, as voters, we're responsible too, not just the House. We've got to vote those people in that are going to make those decisions that we need for our kids.
Mm-hmm. And last question, I don't want to get you in trouble with your current job, but what's it like personally? You're obviously not doing what you love right now. So I stopped it there. Don't know if she would want her comments about her current job out there. So needless to say, she would rather be a teacher. But that was Ann Beck. She is a mother of 3 in Oklahoma. She had to leave teaching in 2013. Unfortunately, she couldn't feed her family. Those were her words. And her husband is still a teacher, but he's only making his teaching salary, I believe, was under $35,000. I wrote it down, actually. Yeah, $34,000. And he drives the bus after teaching and also is a coach for school sports. So he has basically 3 jobs just to get to $50,000. I don't even think he's making $50,000. I think he's making less than $50,000. So as you see from Ann, who had to leave teaching to be, I think she does something to do with automation or whatever she said she does. I forget what she said. But she can't do the job she loves, the job that according to her she was born to do, because you can't make a living off of it. And by the way, the teachers in Oklahoma, the raise that they wanted just went through. What they're striking for now is additional resources so that they don't have to spend all their money out of pocket for school supplies, new textbooks. There's a lot of things needed in education that the state isn't supplying. The state is supplying massive tax breaks for corporations. The state is supplying massive tax breaks for the donors and oil subsidies for subsidies for oil companies, but can't give you new math textbooks that are 20 years old and falling apart. Can't fix the bathrooms in the school. It's not just about the red states. This is what happens when money is everything in a political system. This is what happens when Republicans and neoliberal Democrats are elected into office, because they are not representing the people. They are not thinking about the children and what's best for the children, which are our future. They're thinking about how to stay in power and to pay off their donors because they want to stay in power. They're more interested in staying in power than doing what is right for a society. Because in other countries, they invest a hell of a lot in their school, in their children and schooling. You want to know why? Because it produces better economic results. Finland, for example, is the #1 country in terms of education. They have a shorter school day. They don't have homework. It's very creative. They don't go by a curriculum. And Michael Moore's movie, Where to Invade Next, shows that they have like a five-star meals for the kids, where a chef comes in. And in Michael Moore's movie, he compared it like Finland versus I think it was like a middle school or something in Ohio. And it looked like they just scraped this sloppy Joe off the friggin' floor compared to the gourmet chef-made food in Finland. So, and what really struck me about speaking to her is she has to leave the job she loves, the job she's good at, for a job she hates, just to feed her kids. But her kids are being probably underserved by people like their father, because their father doesn't have time to do lesson planning, which a lot of times happens at home in off hours. He's working from 7 in the morning to 10 at night, as she said, between 3 different jobs, all to make $50,000. Meanwhile, Rex Tillerson walks away from ExxonMobil with like a $300 million exit package. And Jeff Bezos is the richest man in America. And, states are lobbying to get Amazon's second headquarters built in their state. Meanwhile, Trump giving away the farm. If companies want to bring back plants, they don't have in Wisconsin or elsewhere. You don't have to pay taxes. Nope, no taxes. Just bring back those plants. We'll give you tax breaks here from here to eternity. And hey, no taxes means no money for government programs, no money for school. Trump's massive tax cuts on steroids. Well, we're going to get our revenue cut in half. Teachers laid off, teachers at salaries like Ann Beck just described. But hey, that's the price of doing business in the conservatism / neoliberal order. And by the way, this has been happening under Democrats too. They're not talking in Oklahoma or West Virginia or Kentucky like it just happened overnight. It's not only under Trump. This happened under Obama. This happened under Bush. Happened dating back to Clinton. Because the money is funneling from us to the top, as Bernard Sanders says. And it's wrong. It's wrong. And what's great about this now is this collective action is forcing the corporate media to cover it. The corporate media doesn't like to cover things that actually show the plight of working people. They don't like to cover things that actually show oligarchy. But they look pretty corrupt if they're not covering thousands and thousands of teachers across many different states striking. So maybe then they have to focus a little bit more on the fact that in America, teachers are making $34,000 a year that have master's degrees. She had a master's degree, the woman I just spoke with. And she was making, I think she said $34,000 a year. Does that sound normal to you? Yes, if I'm getting out of undergrad, let me go get a master's, which 9 out of 10 times you're going to indebt yourself, probably $75,000 to $150,000 of student loan debt, so I could then go make $34,000 to $40,000 a year. Sign me up, please. It's absurd. And I think you're going to see a lot more of this. I think you're going to see it on teachers. I think you're going to start seeing it even in other sectors. Other unions, hopefully fast food workers. Because we've seen isolated fast food strikes in New York and others, but we haven't seen it all together. We haven't seen Walmart workers striking. We haven't seen Target workers striking. And you want to know why? Because they're living on the edge. They are living at a cliff, and they are deathly afraid to lose their job. Because even with their job, they will have to work 2 or 3 jobs. It comes to mind a woman I interviewed in Alabama last year. She's a Burger King worker, and she basically, I think between rent, electricity costs, going to school, all these things, I mean, she basically every month was, I think, had like an extra $45 in her pocket, and that was a good month. I mean, this is happening all over the country, but it's not just fast food workers, it's our teachers. Many of you who are watching or are going to watch this later. So I don't want to hear about quote unquote democracy under attack, or we're a city on a shining hill, or anyone can make it in America. No. The American dream is just a dream. Sorry to be Debbie Downer, but it's just a dream. If you want to see more interviews like that, if you want to listen to my podcast, if you want to get my daily video diary, definitely check out my Patreon page. Let me show you here. It's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. That's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. I'm doing 2 podcasts a week. One is free. One is for premium patrons, I should say. Right now, we're at 152 patrons at $812 a month. We've had the Patreon open, or launched, I should say, for, I don't know, like 2.5 weeks. So pretty encouraged. We would like to get that number up. The Patreon is going to be, these funds are going to be going towards launching a new company. We want to launch this network, God willing, hopefully late spring, early summer. It will be myself, hopefully other reporters with me. We want to build a large network. We want to get out in the field as our predominant way of getting the news to you. We don't want to be just talking from our apartments or studios. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. But we want to get out there and show you what is going on. So your support is going to get me back out there. I'm not going to be collecting money from Democratic Party plutocrats. I will not be getting money from Republican plutocrats. I will not be getting money from corporations or big oil companies or banks or any of the usual suspects. I want our funds, which are going to be going to reporters, to cameramen, to editors, to marketing, to business, and most importantly, to travel so we could get out and expose what's going on. I want that money predominantly be coming from you. So thank you for the 152 that have subscribed so far. We haven't actually paid for marketing or anything like that, so we're hoping to get this out to more people. Let me know what you think of my my podcasts that are on the Patreon. Let me know what you think about my video diaries, which are a little bit more of behind the scenes. Let me know what you think of some of the more exclusive things we're going to be announcing on the Patreon coming up over the next few weeks. You could email me, email Jordan at protonmail.com. That's email Jordan at protonmail.com. On to the next. So, as the teachers revolt, the corporate media is more focused on more of this Russia stuff. So, to me, when you have strikes all over the country, not all over the country, but I mean, Kentucky, Oklahoma, West Virginia, New Jersey, maybe, just maybe, you'd want to dedicate like an hour to it. Maybe multiple hours. Maybe dig into the history of the education battles that these teachers are having to wage. Not so much. Not so much. You are seeing more coverage on Russia. And now today, it came out that apparently Robert Mueller's investigation is looking into a message that Roger Stone sent. Roger Stone, Trump's, consigliere, worked for the campaign for a couple minutes, but was fired, I think, in 2015 from the campaign. But many believe he was still informally advising and working for Trump. Apparently, Roger Stone sent a message to Sam Nunberg, who was an aide to Trump. He's credited with coming up with the wall that Mexico's going to pay for, saying, "I dined with Julian Assange last night." So, let me read from the Wall Street Journal, which is, the corporate media is acting like this is some bombshell report. I'm going to tell you why it's not in 1 second. But according to the Wall Street Journal, here we go. Mr. Mueller's team has asked about Mr. Stone's email during testimony before a grand jury, according to a person familiar with the matter. So, according to a person familiar with the matter, I don't know who that person is, but this is what passes for reporting. In the months after Mr. Stone sent the email, again, to Sam Nunberg, WikiLeaks released caches of hacked emails from people close to the Clinton campaign, including campaign chairman John Podesta. U.S. officials have said the group received the material from operatives working on behalf of Russia's military intelligence group, which Mr. Assange has denied. Oh, shit. I skipped half the story. Let me restart that. The special counsel investigating alleged links between Trump campaign associates and Russians is looking into longtime advisor Roger Stone's 2016 claim that he had met with WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, according to a person familiar with the matter. WikiLeaks, an anti-secrecy website, later released a trove of material on Democratic candidate Hillary Clinton that U.S. officials say was hacked by Kremlin operatives. Keyword, U.S. officials say. In an email dated August 4th, 2016, Mr. Stone wrote, "I dined with Julian Assange last night," according to a copy of the message reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. Mr. Stone is a longtime informal advisor to President Donald Trump, who at that point had no official campaign role. The note to former Trump advisor Sam Nunberg adds to a growing number of times Mr. Stone claimed during the campaign to be in contact with WikiLeaks. The next day, Mr. Stone publicly praised Mr. Assange via Twitter. In an interview, Mr. Stone said the email to Mr. Nunberg was a joke and that he never communicated with Mr. Assange in 2016. Quote, "I never dined with Assange. The email doesn't have any significance because I provably didn't go. There was no such meeting. It's what you say. It's not what you say, it's what you do. This was said in jest." Mr. Stone said he was flying out of Los Angeles the night before the email, putting him thousands of miles from Ecuador's embassy in London, where Mr. Assange has been holed up since 2012 under asylum. Mr. Stone provided the journal with screenshots showing a book from a person named Roger on a Delta Airlines flight departing Los Angeles for Miami on August 3rd, 2016 at 9:30 p.m. The airline confirmed a flight matching Mr. Stone's screenshot, but declined to say whether Mr. Stone was on board, citing customer privacy rules, and WikiLeaks did not respond to a request for comment. So, I mean, they literally will look for anything to get hysterical about. CNN is now wall-to-wall with this. MSNBC is now wall-to-wall with this. First of all, did they meet or did they not meet? That would be the most important thing. Well, if they did meet, then Roger Stone, what did he just put on Harry Potter's invisibility cloak and sneak into the Ecuadorian embassy, which, by the way, the UK, as a proxy for the United States, has eyes on 24/7? I mean, Roger Stone, during the campaign in August of 2016, just, gallivanted into the Ecuadorian embassy. Roger Stone, who, if you know Roger Stone, if you've read into him, if you've researched, there's a documentary on Netflix. I think it's Becoming Roger Stone or something. I haven't watched it, but I heard it's pretty good. Is, known as a serial liar, is known as, coming from the, what's the worst kind of politics you could... he comes from a very, very sinister, deceptive school of politics. Okay? So, did he mean that when he said, did he dine with Julian Assange? Does he mean maybe he Skyped with him? Maybe he tweeted with him? We don't know. Because Robert Mueller hasn't really released all these details from his investigation. But that doesn't stop the corporate media, i.e. MSNBC, who's dying for the ratings in terms of this. They're restoking the Cold War to get ratings. That's what it is. Or CNN, who has put on a Cold War 2.0 reenactment. But the Wall Street Journal publishes that Robert Mueller is looking into this claim, but couldn't Robert Mueller just subpoena Roger Stone's bank records to see, did he have a flight to Ecuador? Can you see if he paid for a flight to LA, which reportedly the Wall Street Journal suggests? Why are we talking about the fact that Roger Stone said he had dinner with Julian Assange when there's no proof he had actual physical dinner with Julian Assange? You know what there is proof of? Let me show you this Nothingburger story The Atlantic put out a couple months ago. This was another bombshell report that actually showed the exact opposite of what The Atlantic was alleging. So, you see this picture? Here we go. This is the sinister picture, theatlantic.com, with the headline. Let's see what the headline was. Roger Stone's secret messages with WikiLeaks. Dun, dun, dun. Are you ready? Because this picture scares the hell out of me. It's Assange in silhouette with red tints in his hair. Roger Stone looking like the dead devil reincarnated. Roger Stone is a bad guy. I'm not going to pretend he's not. But they say, on March 17th, 2017, WikiLeaks tweeted that it never communicated with Roger Stone, a longtime confidant and informal advisor to President Donald Trump. In an interview with House Intelligence Committee last September, Stone, who testified under oath, told lawmakers that he had communicated with WikiLeaks via an intermediary, whom he identified only as a journalist. He declined to reveal that person's identity to the committee, he told reporters later. Private Twitter message obtained by The Atlantic showed that Stone and WikiLeaks, a radical transparency group, keyword radical transparency group, communicated directly on October 13, 2016, and that WikiLeaks sought to keep its channel to Stone open after Trump won the election. You want to see what their sinister communications were? Here we go. Here's the DN that this story was about. Roger Stone, since I was all over national TV, cable, and print defending WikiLeaks and Assange against the claim that you are Russian agents and debunking the false charges of sexual assault as trumped-up BS, you may want to re-examine the strategy of attacking me. Cordially, R. For Roger. WikiLeaks' response, and most reports show that WikiLeaks in Twitter is actually Julian Assange. He runs the account. We appreciate that. However, the false claims of association are being used by the Democrats to undermine the impact of our publications. Don't go there if you don't want us to correct you. So Assange is basically saying, stop lying about talking to us, or I guess now dining with us. Stone says, the more you correct me, the more people think you're lying. Your operation leaks like a sieve. You need to figure out who your friends are. WikiLeaks responded, happy, we are now free to communicate. So what exactly were the sinister communications they were having? Because that's the only DM that has been shown from my eyes that I have seen between WikiLeaks and Roger Stone. Mueller might have more that hasn't come out. But again, I've always said you could have an investigation, but do we need to dedicate 24/7 of our media? And by the way, it's not just corporate media. There are some independent outlets that have gotten very, very lively and engaged in Russiagate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Keeping it real. But Stone says he dined with Assange. No evidence that he was in Ecuador. We don't know what did Stone Skype with him? With Assange? Did he, tweet with him? What did they have for dinner together? But this is now going to be all over primetime tonight instead of predominantly the teacher's strike, which should be the main story. Instead of the fact that, do you know that a Sacramento deputy sheriff literally ran over a protester at Stefan Clark protest over the weekend? Saturday night, a deputy sheriff ran over a 61-year-old woman and then drove away. Thankfully, she's alive. I haven't seen that at all on corporate media. So now the police who are policing these protests are now running over protesters. Even if it was unintentional. Who knows? If it was intentional, non-intentional, benefit of the doubt. It was an accident. Drove off. If I ran over someone and drove off, I'd be in jail, probably for 15 to 20. But Roger Stone says he had dinner with Julian Assange. No evidence of such. Let's talk about it and hyperventilate, because that's what's about to happen, folks. So I know everyone, the Dems, the Hillbots, they're going to say, Jordan, how much is the Kremlin paying you? Do you see my crappy lighting in my apartment? Not much. Not much. As in nothing. I'm not a Kremlin agent. Jimmy Dore is not a Kremlin agent. Lee Camp is not a Kremlin agent. We're just people who call bullshit. And you know what? When Robert Mueller comes out and he has actual evidence that some type of sinister collusion happened between the Trump campaign and the Russian government to hack emails or whatever, I'll be the first one to report it. I gladly say, hey, everybody was right. But I have this different notion of journalism. I don't engage in mass speculation 24/7 if I don't have evidence. I wait for investigations to happen. That doesn't mean investigative reporters they're not supposed to wait. They're supposed to try and get the information. Get sources in Mueller's team who apparently does not leak information. They are supposed to investigate. They are supposed to try and break news. They don't have to wait. But the punditry and the commentators, it's all they cover. While the planet burns, while water across the country gets contaminated, no coverage. While black men are being murdered, still, across the country, they'll cover it when there's mass protests and, police with shields and fire. They'll cover that for a couple days. It's getting ridiculous. And I don't really care what the Hillbots and David Brock's bots on Twitter who attack me and others have to say. This is not the Cold War, even though you'd like to make it that. And Bill Kristol isn't a good guy, even though the Democrats are now kind of like rebranding and rehabilitating the Bill Kristols of the world and the David Frums of the world. Like, enough. It's ridiculous. Moving on from the teachers' revolution to more Russiagate nonsense, it looks like Debbie Wasserman Schultz is not going to have the Democratic primary challenge that we all thought. Tim Canova, who ran against her in 2016, was probably the most high-profile down ballot progressive. He lost. It came out later that the South Florida Board of Elections, the supervisor of elections, literally threw out thousands of ballots. She happened to be a supporter and friend of Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She illegally tossed out thousands of ballots. Canova sued. I haven't heard much about that. So our democracy is under attack from Russia, but supervisors of elections in bed with corrupt politicians like Debbie Wasserman Schultz, them tossing out the ballots. Why would you toss out the ballots illegally? Why wouldn't you be criminally liable for that? If I threw out ballots, you better believe I'd go to jail. Well, Tim Canova today announced he's quitting the Democratic Party, but he's still, so meaning he's not going to primary Debbie Wasserman Schultz as a Democrat. He still plans to challenge her nonetheless. This is from the Sun Sentinel, who, I mean, I'm not from South Florida, but I know enough to say is pretty establishment. Basically writes press releases for the Democratic Party, and Debbie Wasserman Schultz has not been fair in their coverage to Tim Canova. If you don't know Tim Canova, he's a law professor, ran in 2016, didn't take PAC money, was very, very good on climate change, on fracking that has been decimating Florida and threatening its aquifer, on issues like student loans, on ending the endless wars. I mean, he's a progressive, capital P, in my opinion. So why is he dumping the Democratic Party? A defiant Tim Canova said Monday he's changing tactics in his quest to defeat U.S. Representative Debbie Wasserman Schultz. He's leaving the Democratic Party and abandoning his primary challenge of Wasserman Schultz. He hopes to appear on the November ballot as a no-party affiliation candidate against her. Canova made his announcement during a lengthy and wide-ranging speech outside the Broward County Governmental Center, during which he rallied against Wasserman Schultz, alleging she's a tool of corporate interests, blasted Supervisor of Elections Brenda Snipes on the grounds that she helped rig the 2016 Democratic primary against him, which I just mentioned, complained that the Democratic Party is out of touch with the true interests of voters, and declared he'd soon start campaigning around the state. Several times during his remarks, Canova used the term bull, I'll fill it in, bullshit, explaining that he wouldn't hesitate to forcefully condemn something that he and his supporters didn't like. Among his targets, the leadership of the Broward Democratic Party has its head up its ass. And he explained, quote, I am not screwing the Democratic Party. It has screwed over too many ordinary Americans and screwed over too many progressive candidates. Wasserman Schultz, he said, is the kiss of death. She's the albatross around the party. He called her, quote, a menace to Florida, the nation, and the world. Strong talk from Tim Canova. Canova said he would travel to Tallahassee on May 4th to officially become a no-party affiliation congressional candidate. The fee to get on the ballot as an NPA candidate is $6,960, cheaper than the $10,440 it costs to run as a Democrat or Republican for Congress. Canova had just $5,157 cash in his campaign account at the beginning of 2018, according to the latest disclosure reports from the FEC. His campaign also reported debts of $35,000, mostly personal cash he lent to his campaign. Canova said on Monday he didn't know how much he had in campaign coffers when the first quarter fundraising period ended on Saturday, but said he'd have enough to cover the qualifying fee. After Wasserman Schultz won the August 2016 Democratic congressional primary in the Broward, Miami-Dade County 23rd Congressional District, 57 to 43%, Canova declined to acknowledge that she won and he lost. In Broward, which makes up most of the 23rd Congressional District, Wasserman Schultz received 26,608 votes, and Canova got 20,504. She won the Miami-Dade County part of the district, 2,201 to 1,403. He repeatedly suggested that there might have been irregularities that altered the outcome of the race. Quote, we are living at the mercy of corrupt forces in our society. Many of us were skeptical of that outcome. He hasn't offered evidence in support of that claim, but said Monday the biggest mistakes he's made as a congressional candidate was failing to challenge the results in a timely manner after the August 30 race. Since then, in pursuit of evidence, he sued Snipes, the elections office chief, for access to the ballots from the primary. While the suit has been pending, the elections office destroyed the original ballots. So, what the Sun Sentinel left out here, Tim Canova's not alleging it. He's not alleging that thousands of ballots got thrown out. That's what happened. Politico of all places, exposed this. Let me read you from the Politico, which, credit to them, they don't deserve it usually, but experts, Broward's election chief broke law in destroying ballots. Hold on. The election supervisor in Florida's second most populous county broke the law, keyword, broke the law, by destroying ballots cast in last year's congressional primary involving Debbie Wasserman Schultz, according to election law experts across the political spectrum. The Congresswoman's opponents has sued to get access to the ballots. The case, one of 3 ongoing independent lawsuits plaguing Broward County election supervisor Brenda Snipes' troubled office, stems from a June lawsuit filed in circuit court by Democrat Tim Canova, no longer a Democrat. He had wanted to inspect the optical scan ballots case in his August 30 primary race against Wasserman Schultz because he had concerns about the integrity of the elections office. Under long-standing federal law, ballots cast in a congressional race aren't supposed to be destroyed until 22 months after the election. And under state law, a public record sought in a court case is not supposed to be destroyed without a judge's order. Sorry, I went up too soon. Snipes' office, however, destroyed the paper ballots in question in September in the middle of Canova's lawsuit, but says it's lawful because the office made high-quality electronic copies. Canova's legal team found out after the fact last month. Quote, the documents were not destroyed because they were maintained in an electric format, Snipes' attorney said. They have the documents. They did a 2-day inspection of the ballots. But Canova, a Nova Southeastern University law professor, and his attorneys say they wanted originals to make sure they weren't tampered with. Digital copies can be altered, they said. 7 election law lawyers interviewed by Politico do not share Snipes' attorney's interpretation of the statute, nor does the Department of Justice's voting division, which is in charge of enforcing the federal law. Quote, if it's a federal election, i.e. there is at least one federal candidate on the ballot, the custodian must keep the ballot for 22 months. Brett Capel, a Washington lawyer with Ackerman LLP, said in an email to Politico, state law may require a shorter time for retention, but federal laws would preempt any such state law with regards to ballots cast for federal election candidates. I could go on, but the bottom line is this. The Sun Sentinel story that I first read, how do you not include the fact that it is now shown, it is proven, that ballots were destroyed? They make it seem like, well, Tim Canova's saying this, but there's no proof. Politico just gave you the proof, goddammit. Excuse my French. It's insane. The only democracy that's provenly under attack is when Russian trolls and Russian troll farms, penetrate the minds of would-be Hillary Clinton voters. But when it's actually confirmed, Brenda Snipes' office confirmed that they threw out the paper ballots. Sun Sentinel, who's in bed with Debbie Wasserman, well, I hope they're not really in bed, but figuratively in bed with the Democratic Party establishment, with Debbie Wasserman Schultz for over a decade. They don't want to include that in the story. Well, kudos to Politico, who broke that story last year, I believe. And you know what? I'm going to keep it real. I like Tim Canova. I'm not from Florida, so I can't vote there. If I was, I would vote for him in a heartbeat. I think the progressive movement, not just because she's a terrible politician and she's a terrible representative of actual working people, not just because she's corrupt, I think it would be very cathartic and a very big catalyst for other change if Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who other than Hillary Clinton, I can't really think of a bigger face of corruption within the Democratic Party over the years, was removed from office. With that said, I told a friend who is in contact with Tim Canova, I think he's informally helped his campaign, that I didn't think Tim was going to beat Debbie Wasserman Schultz, as a Democrat, that is. I didn't think he should run for re-election run again against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, because that district is heavily establishment. Frankly, it's predominantly older people, a lot of Jewish people. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is the first Jewish congressperson from Florida. And I've been down there. I covered it in 2016, the week before the election, and it has a very big smell of establishment. So I thought it would be an uphill climb. I thought it might have been a better move for him to run for the Senate and primary Bill Nelson. But we are where we are. he's choosing to run not as a Democrat, but no party affiliation. I think that's probably, if he's going to defeat Debbie Wasserman Schultz in November, I think that's probably the best way to do it, because he needs to get out and run across the state of Florida and raise his profile again. I mean, people know him from 2016, but get out there, because Debbie Wasserman Schultz, it's not just that district. She is a figure in Florida politics. She is a figure in national politics. Most stories associated with her name involve corruption. Most stories associated with her name involve pay-for-play. So I think it's a smart move by Tim Canova. I'm not going to blow smoke up his ass. I don't know if he's going to win. I think it will be an uphill climb. I will cover his race. I'm sure I will interview him. We've got a invitation is out there. I'd love to have you on my podcast. Patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. That's patreon.com/Jordan Chariton Reports. Your support will help me get out in the field to get up close and cover and help expose corrupt politicians like Miss Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Nothing personal, Debbie. Just don't like your politics and corruption. Call me old-fashioned. Or call me a Bernie bro. Actually, just don't call me. Canova, dumping the Democratic Party. I like it. I like it. I don't think he would have beat her in the Democratic primary. That district is rigged. Frankly, if paper ballots are being destroyed, and then nothing's happening to that woman who destroyed them, that would be Brenda Snipes. How do you think you're going to get a fair contest in a Democratic primary? I don't know if he's going to get a fair contest in the general election either, but he's definitely not going to get one in the Democratic primary. We will follow what's going on with Tim Canova. He is not a Democrat anymore. Frankly, his policies are not in line with the Democratic Party, just like most progressives' policies are not in line with the Democratic Party leadership as it is today. But make no mistake, the Democratic Party, whether they like it or not, is moving to the left. Bernie Sanders is the most popular politician in America. Whether Hillbots or the establishment can't stand it or not, it's the truth. So as they pontificate and try to push Kamala Harris or Joe Biden or Kirsten Gillibrand, the data doesn't back it up. The data does not back that up. Polls don't back it up, and the support with our own eyes around the country doesn't back that up. So, happy Tim Canova is doing this. I will interview him over the next few weeks to try and get his rationale for doing it, see what his actual strategy is to try and win in November. I mean, we've seen Jesse Ventura won in Minnesota as an independent. Donald Trump won as a Republican, but he was essentially running as an independent. Well, he wasn't running on anything. He doesn't have an ideology. He's just a con man. So that's the story with Tim Canova. That's all for today. Tomorrow we will try to go live from YouTube. Today, for some reason, my YouTube would not work. 505 error, 404 error, whatever. My Facebook wouldn't work. Periscope worked. Thanks for sticking with me. One more time, I appreciate your support. I know everyone is squeezed, so if you do have the means, your support is going to help me get back on the road. Your support is going to help me launch a media company with other reporters. Your support is going to be able to get me in the field to the Flints, to the Standing Rocks, to the East Chicagos, to these teacher strikes, to where these terrible, terrible gun massacres are happening. And I'm not going to leave when all the other cameras leave. I'm staying. The real story is when the cameras leave, not when it actually happens. That's my belief. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.